In our weekly reading, Parshat Kedoshim, one of the verses tells us to get up before elderly people. The truth is, the verse talks about two different kinds of people. It talks about Seva, which can be translated as a person whose hair is already getting gray, and Zaken, an elder. So the Shulchan Aruch, the main code of Jewish law, follows the opinion in the Talmud. It's mostly discussed in Masechet Kedoshim. In the laws of marriage, somehow the Talmud goes off on a tangent, sort of, and starts discussing all kinds of other laws, including what a person has to do for his children, and what the children have to do for their parents, and the laws of respecting parents, which, by the way, is also in our parsha. In our parsha, it says, "Ish imo v'aviv tirau." Every person should fear their mother and father. So when the Talmud discusses all those laws, it also discusses the laws of getting up before the elderly. And what it concludes, and as I said, the Shulchan Aruch rules according to this opinion, and that is that we have to get up both before old people and before wise people. Meaning Seva, literally gray hair, means an old person, whereas Zaken means an elder, meaning not old in terms of age, but elderly in terms of knowledge. Zaken in Hebrew can mean a leader, a knowledgeable person. It's just usually that knowledge comes with age, so that's why the word is a kind of homonym, but it is a related word. It's not purely a coincidence that the word old and the word wise or elder, I mean in English also the word elder, I guess, can sometimes mean not necessarily an old person in terms of the physical age. So whatever the case may be, in Hebrew for sure, Zaken can mean a wise person. For example, when Moshe gathered 70 elders, it's not necessarily true that they were all old in terms of age, but they were elders in terms of their knowledge. So according to this, we have to get up. We have to be, to show our respect and rise when we see an old person coming or a wise person coming. Either way. The interesting question is, what's considered old in regards to this law? The Talmud, interestingly, does not tell us. I would expect in the same place in the Talmud in Masechet Kiddushin that it would discuss who is considered old, because the Talmud loves very particular, specific discussions. Judaism, of course, especially with all the detailed laws, with the longer we exist as a nation, the more detailed our laws became. There are all kinds of discussions, in particular in Responsa and in various halachic works, about every kind of aspect. So you'd expect that the Talmud would mention right away that the person who is considered old in respect to this is a person who is this and this old. So I would have thought that because it doesn't say clearly in the Talmud, maybe it means that it depends on the generation and who are considered old in the particular generation. I mean, in the medieval times, people on average lived 30-something years. So a person living till 60 years was considered old. Today, there are societies where people live over 80 years on average. So there are a lot of old people in these societies. And it would sound like that it's unlikely that Torah would force you to pick yourself up every time somebody passes by who is over, let's say, 70 years old in the places where there are a lot of 70-year-olds, and it's not considered particularly old. However, as I said, this would be my supposition. Maybe originally that's what it meant, but in terms of the practical halacha, the law is that once a person is 70, they're considered old. And it's learned from Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Very interesting. It's very rare that Pirkei Avot, what is called the teachings of fathers, literally, right? This is a unique Mishnah which deals with ethical laws rather than mostly ritual and specific pedantic laws, meaning most of the Mishnah, 60 out of 61 tractates of Mishnah, deal with specific laws. For instance, the first Mishnah is brachot, blessings. So it talks about how to say Shema, at what time, when is the latest time to say morning Shema, and things like that. Then it talks about blessings, and it talks about various other prayers. But it does not talk so much about ethical, musar, what's called, the various ethical teachings. And so too, the tractate Shabbat, for instance, talks about how to keep Shabbat correctly. Of course, there are some ethical teachings in every tractate, but usually a very small percentage. Whereas Pirkei Avot, it's exactly the opposite. It is very rare that Pirkei Avot will be quoted by Shulchan Aruch, by the standard code of Jewish law, but the Musar works, the works of Jewish ethics, quote it a lot, because it's mostly dealing with ethics. And yet, this particular Mishnah in Pirkei Avot is actually quoted, or it became a base of determining what's considered an old person. So the Mishnah there goes through the stages of a person's life. For instance, when do you start learning the written Torah? At 5 years old. At Mishnah, you start learning at 10 years old. At 15, the person starts learning Talmud. At 18, he should get married, or at least start looking for a shidduch, right? Ideally, 18 was considered an ideal time for marriage. In many communities, it still is. Etc., etc. And then it goes through the person getting old already, and it says that the ben shivim leseiva, a person who is 70 is seiva. Seiva is basically, as I said, literally gray hair, right? Old person is seiva. So based on this Mishnah, the halacha states that we have to get up before anybody who is 70. That's considered an old person today. Even though in today's day and age, 70 is not really that old, and people live. It's not an unusual thing that people would live till 70. A lot of people live much longer than 70, and on average, people live much longer than 70. But with all that, the law still states that we have to get up before people who are 70 or older. And on this I'm going to end. If you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.